Hello and welcome to this question and answers video. This question and answers video is going to be centric around the comic series that I put on DeviantArt called Twilight Window. It's about nightmares, they go into the real world and stuff happens. I like to think it's pretty cool. Anyways, if you don't know what Twilight Window is or you don't read it, then you probably shouldn't be watching this question and answers video because chances are you're not going to know what the heck I'm talking about. And if you want to read them, I'm going to probably put a link in the description if you want. I mean, you don't have to. Whatever. Anyways, I'm going to get right into it. Because some of these questions look like they're going to take me a long time to answer, knowing me and knowing that I like to talk about this kind of stuff in detail a lot. So, we're just going to get right into it. First question. Irregular asks, were there any characters planned for Twilight Window, main characters, side characters, etc., that were either replaced with a current character or removed? And what are some issues with the Hundreds Uprising that you would want to fix if you remade it? Okay. Yeah, there was one character that came to mind in the beta version of Twilight Window who later got scrapped. I don't remember this character's design very well. I could probably draw it by memory. Her name was Halo. She was supposed to be like some kind of ethereal, weird type person, creature. And she herded these monsters that would be the plot points or something in the old version of the series. Thinking about her now, she's kind of a bitch. She's kind of a jerk because she it was basically because of these the main characters ended up releasing these monsters in the old version. And she made them all go get them, even though they were all kids and they had no means of fighting these monsters very well. But she forced them to anyway. I don't really remember what her purpose was aside from that. Yeah, because she's like some sort of magic person or something. I don't know. Anyways, I scrapped her because I realized that I don't have a place for her, and I kind of made her up on the spot anyway, so it wasn't a big loss. I can't remember if there are any other, like, extremely relevant characters that ended up getting, pulled out of the series during, when the story actually came into play. But, yeah. That was the only character I can remember who got axed. And some issues with the Hundreds Uprising that you would want to fix if you remade it. In case you guys don't know, the Hundreds Uprising is also another comic series I made before Twilight Window, but I canceled it because I didn't like it. Anyways, the issues with the Hundreds Uprising, and I like ripping into this series for some reason. My issues with the Hundreds Uprising is the pacing felt off, and I still barely have a concept of pacing, but I don't know, based on how I feel like it's like if I have like this general feeling if the story is going well for me or not. And for the Hundreds Uprising, it felt not good, that feeling. Like, it felt like it was all over the place. It felt like the build-up was super slow into the conflict. There wasn't a ton of plot. There was an exposition dumped all over the beginning, like with Zero, one of the main characters. Just pretty much exposition dumped all over Dash, basically, the other main character. Like saying, like, okay, and by the way, this is gonna happen, and this is happening, and by the way, this is all the backstory you'll ever need for this. This is all the context you'll ever need for this scene. And it just felt really sloppily put together and stuff, and honestly, I didn't really have a clear vision of where I was going when I started this. I just felt like, hey, a webcomic, let's just dive in, and stuff. So I didn't really plan out the story very well. So yeah, pacing was an issue. There was a big exposition dump in the beginning that felt lazy. Too many issues where stuff happened because plot kind of stuff happened. Like, there was that scene where they needed to go out into the far tundra or something to find the magic place, basically. And there just so happened to be a kid and his little sister living on the edge of town where nobody knew them, and he made like super high-tech machines that were far, far, far beyond the time period of the story where the story took place. And one of his machines just happened to be a completely functional hovercraft type thing that could survive the tundra. So, yeah. And then, of course, once they were done using him, he got killed off because he was no longer relevant to the plot. And, I don't know, I just felt like a lot of stuff happened. Like, a lot of stuff, it doesn't feel like it should have happened. Like, it didn't feel like this would have naturally happened in the story. It just felt forced to me. I didn't like how it was turning out. And then it would have gotten better, I think, lately. But then again, I also don't remember exactly where I was going to go after that. It felt like even more of like a crazy train wreck and stuff. So, if I ever wanted to remake the Hundreds Uprising, because I said I was considering it, but it's not a promise, I'd probably fix the pacing. I'd probably fix some of the characters. I'd probably get rid of the high-tech guy and his sister, because they were only really there for like plot convenience, and then when they went away, it was like, okay. Yeah, I'd fix a lot of the characters. I'd fix a lot of the scenarios so it wouldn't be like unrealistic and forced by the plot to make it work. Because that's what it felt like to me. People might disagree with me, but that's what it felt like to me, and it made it not very enjoyable to write. So yeah. Also, the art style was bad. It didn't age very well at all. The art looks very bad, but that was just because that was an earlier time when I was drawing it. And I'd probably fix how I did the paneling too, because for some reason I did the paneling in kind of a weird way, and I had to put my name in the very bottom for some reason, my current username. And since I kept changing my username on DeviantArt a couple of times, that would change too, so it was not very... There's some continuity issues there, and it looked bad, and it looked sloppy, and I kind of used the same panel configuration like several pages in a row, and that got dumb. So anyways, there's a lot of things I'd fix with the Hundreds Uprising, but mainly it's because of how I did the plot. Okay, next question. Snowy Fool asks, which Twilight Window character did you enjoy developing the most? Which did you enjoy developing the least? Hiccup. If you could change one character's design, but because it's too far in the comic, it's too late to really change it, which would you change? And how long has Twilight Window's story and plot been in development? A lot of questions. Okay, the Twilight Window character that I enjoyed developing the most, I don't know, there's a lot. And I like them for different reasons. I guess I really like developing... I like developing Starker, I guess. Because... I don't know if I'm doing a very good job at it, but I liked doing that. Because... I don't know, I feel like he means well, he's just too headstrong, too impulsive. And I guess I could say I was really excited to get to that one particular scene where his impulsiveness kind of causes a bad thing to happen. Even though it's more like an intergroup drama type thing, it was still like a big deal, I guess, to me to write. Because I thought that was like the first thing where it was like, okay, maybe you're right, I'm being too impulsive or something. Who else? Okay, and then there's I like developing... Okay, this kind of came out of nowhere, too. Kai's development, for some reason, I really came to like. Because at first, I was going to make him be that character that you love to hate, or, like, has no redeeming qualities whatsoever, is completely, totally, just 100% bad, and you should hate him, and nothing good can come out of him, and stuff. That was what he was originally going to be. It's probably why he was really bad in the beginning. I don't know. And then, for some reason, over time, I sort of lost control of the character development, and he ended up shifting into, like, a morally gray stance. And, I mean, I guess it wasn't a complete loss of control. I was kind of planning to go in that direction anyway, but maybe not as, like swung as severe in that direction as I intended. And I can't say I'm disappointed, because I'm really not. I actually like how that went. And it ended up being kind of like an experience for me, and I really liked it. Like, I don't know, for some reason, I like experimenting with morally great characters now. And it kind of shifted him from a villain to a anti-hero of a sorts, who's still kind of unredeemable, but maybe a little redeemable. I don't know. We'll just have to see. So yeah, that was somebody who I didn't expect to like the development of, because in the story he wasn't supposed to have any development at all, and then this happened. So I thought that was really cool that happened. And the character that I enjoyed developing the least, I don't really know. I guess I guess the character I enjoyed developing the least was Driscoll, King Driscoll. Just because I don't like his character personally. I just don't like it very much. I don't know. I'm not very good at designing like sort of humanoid like monsters. I'm practicing at it, but I don't think I'm very good at it. I didn't really care for Driscoll in general. I know I didn't want him to be like the main villain or something, like I didn't want him to be like the main evil, because, well, I mean that'd be kind of easy. The Nightmare King is evil or something. Instead I made him kind of a coward and stuff. I still don't like him all that much, maybe because I know the full extent of what he's done in the story. And technically, if you think about it, he did cause a lot of the stuff that's happening right now, like, by being a bad ruler. He caused a lot of the drama that's going on in the story currently. I mean, you'd know what I was talking about if you read it, but I am a little resistant to giving out spoilers, or specific spoilers. I don't know. But yeah, I just don't really care for Driscoll that much. I mean, I don't want to half-ass his character either, just because I don't like him all that much, but yeah, just in general, he's a character that I don't really like all that much. Okay, if I could change one character's design, if I could change one character's design because it's too far in the comic and too late to change it, which would I change? Okay, so a character's design would probably change. The first one that comes to mind is Kato for some reason. I'd want to change his design, and like his physical design, obviously. I don't know. There's just something off-putting about his design and markings that I didn't like very much, but I couldn't really think of anything better, and I didn't exactly know what to do about it. So I don't hate his design, it's just I felt like I could have done better. To be honest, all of them I would kind of tweak their designs a little bit, at least with the colorations. Like, I'd want to make Starker's blue colors a little more muted, I guess, to fit in with the rest of them, because I was afraid his blue fur would be too bright or something. Yeah, I'd probably make a lot of their colors kind of muted or something. And especially Kato, that I'd change his markings around a little bit, but just because I don't really know how I'd change it, I didn't. So, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with leaving as is, but that was just the first person that came to mind. And how long has Twilight Window's story and plot been in development? Few years. Like, for the entirety of Twilight Window, that has been since 2013, when those characters were first made. And around that time, I would have been, like, trying to think up a story. And then it was kind of an on and off process throughout then, because I was swapping between thinking about the Hundreds Uprising story, and then when I didn't feel like thinking about the Hundreds Uprising, I switched to Twilight Window. And eventually that was a process, but like the current story that you know now, I don't really exactly know how I've been developing the current story. It's 2016. Maybe since 2014? I know, yeah, something like that, I think. Like, since 2014, I believe. I used to, like, if I had my old sketchbooks with me, I don't have them anymore, I would have been able to go back and see if I could, like, track what time it was, like, what time I started developing it, but, like I said, I don't have my old sketchbooks anymore, so I can't really do that. So, yeah, since 2014 is my estimate. Okay, next question. Origami Master 345 says, what would Esther's adult life have been like? So, what would her adult life have been like if she had never gone through what she had to go through? Or what will it be like if she was the way she was? I don't know, the way it's worded, I'm assuming, like, if she never had to, like, go through her situation. Okay, if Esther had never had to go through her situation in the story, I guess she would have grown up to be... Now, if I think about it, she might have grown up to be superstitious like the rest of the town she was sent to live in, maybe. Just because out of, like, a fear or something. Or, like, that whole, like, mob mentality or something. She probably would have grown up to be as superstitious as the rest of the town that she was sent to live in. She would have probably had her leg replaced with a prosthetic after a while. And that's probably what'll still happen in her adult life now, currently, is she would have her bad leg replaced with a prosthetic because she technically needs like a support to walk around, to be able to walk around. And if she had grown up with, like, as the story is going now, she probably would have grown up to be, she'd probably mimic Starker's personality a lot as she grew up with them. She'd want to, like, fight people. She'd be, like, maybe not as blunt as he is, and maybe more, like, kind of, like, throwing shade at people and, like, being, like, passive-aggressive about it. But I feel like she'd probably start mimicking Starker's personality after a while. But, that's how she'd grow up if she were that's how she would have grown up, going off the story as it is now. If she had never met them, she'd probably grow up to be really paranoid and probably really timid, probably really faint-hearted, and just not very strong in general. Okay. Next question. Slaving over Doom asks, who's your favorite Twilight Window character? I would never choose a favorite. Out of all of my children, I would never, ever think of that. That is mean to my children. I mean, wow. Why would anyone ever think that? That is just audacious. Is that even a word? I don't know. Next question. Animal Crazy 55 asks, what for you is the hardest part about making your comic? If you could go back and change one thing in the story, take something out, add something in, change something, etc., what would it be? Were there any characters that you ended up scrapping? Would you want a real-life Salem? Okay. The hardest thing about making my comic, I guess... I guess the backgrounds. I mean, that's kind of an easy answer. I don't like doing backgrounds very much, and I'm still working on it. So, I'm doing backgrounds, especially the backgrounds that are, like, the interior of, like, a building or something. Those are the ones I'm the worst at, because usually in all of the shots where somebody is inside a room, there's, like, one of the corners of the room is visible in the shot, and then you have to, like, you have to know how to do perspective in order to make it look right, depending on the angle you choose. And I try to, like, experiment with different angles, so it doesn't, like, it's not always, like, full front-facing shots for each time. So you gotta know perspective to do that, and I'm still working on that. I don't know if I've gotten any better or worse, but, it's one of my least favorite things to do. And I guess, like, aside from that, another hard part is trying to gauge how well the pacing is going, or, like, gauge how long I should make a scene. Like, how long do I have to make the scene to make it impactful but not go on too long to the point where it's like you're dragging out something and it loses its effect, or making it too short where people don't really get, like, it doesn't sink in and it doesn't mean anything. So those are one of the two things that's also kind of hard to do. And yeah, I guess also figuring out dialogue too, like figuring out what I kind of like have a general idea, planning it ahead of time, how the story would go, how the dialogue would go in each page. But sometimes it, like, flies out of my head at the last minute, and I'm like, oh god. And then I have to look at the last page and see if that'll jog my memory. Okay, if I could go back and change one thing in the story, what would it be? Okay, honestly, if I could change one thing in the story, it would be that whole asylum scene. Like, I sort of think that was just the residual, like, me wanting to have edginess in the story or something, like, even more so than it already is. And have, like, you know, character was in a mental institution type thing. And, looking back on it, I don't think it mixes with the story very well at all. Or at least, like, not in the way that I would have wanted it back then. Like, I think what my intention back then was to do was, the asylum was supposed to be a place where they were holding all of the people having chronic nightmares as a result of the nightmares. And because that town was superstitious, they assumed all those people were possessed or something. So it was supposed to be like an asylum for people having all those people having nightmares, basically, not like an actual asylum. And since it was like this is supposed to be like a old time, like the time period in this comic is supposed to be kind of old-ish. It's definitely not modern times. That meant the asylum people were kind of abusive, and like people were severely uneducated about that stuff, and were severely like, they treated the people there very badly. But I think I went overboard, and I wasn't really supposed to like get mental illness stuff involved in it. But yeah, I messed up that part. So if I could go back and change it, I'd probably make the context more like just around nightmares and not around like a bigger issue that would never be touched upon later anyways. Because it just doesn't fit, and then it wouldn't be like ever brought up again later. So it's like it's kind of like you brought up a big issue but you're not actually doing anything with it. That would be the first thing that came to mind if I could change it. And then I guess other things would be that I would change in the story would be like kind of fixing up Kai's motivation a little bit. I feel like it's kind of hard to follow in the beginning of the story, but then again, that's just me. I don't know how other people feel about it. I would have like tried to clean it up a little better, because I know he's supposed to like have a very convoluted, like, how he does things and his motivation, like how he does things to achieve what he wants to do is a little bit is pretty convoluted, and I was afraid that might be hard to follow, and I would want to like just like clean that up a little bit without, if I didn't risk the possibility of throwing off the whole story. So yeah. And were there any characters that you ended up scrapping? Yeah, like I said, that was that Halo chick. She just didn't fit in it anymore. And I mean, yeah, she was made up on the spot, so it doesn't really matter. And would you want a real life Salem? I already have a real life Salem, you dummy. Next question. Galaxy Gale asks, how much of the comic was super planned out and how much was pure improv? What are some cute/weird quirks of the cast that you never got to explain to the main story? Like the onion thing, for example. Okay, how much of the comic was super planned out? A couple of scenes were pretty planned out, just because that was how I wrote back then, was like make up some scenes that I wanted to see and then just like plot all the in-betweens later or something. So, okay, this is probably the part where I have to use spoilers to answer this, so if you care, I guess you might want to skip over this question. Okay, so the scenes I had super planned out, like as it was starting, okay, there were a lot of scenes that were super planned out, but I'm gonna just talk about a few of them. The capturing scene was definitely the one that I planned out the most, I guess. Like where Starker and Esther both get captured, and Starker gets basically tortured or something. That was the one that was super planned out. It was going to be more and more brutal the first time, but then over time it slowly got more and more tame, I guess. To the point where all he had to go through was being like all restrained and then punched and then stabbed later. It was going to be more brutal than that. I feel like I explained this at one point somewhere else. But yeah, there's going to be like actual torture methods involved, psychological torture, he'd be kept awake at night because Kai would be like telling Esther to start screaming or else he'd kill her, and then Starker would hear the screaming from another room and not sleep at all because he'd keep worrying about her. Like actual torture, basically, or something. So, over time that just got more and more tame because I didn't really want to go overboard, and then and then it was all kind of awkward later on anyways. If I felt like awkward about trying to make it super brutal as the torture scene anyway. But yeah, that was like one of the big scenes that I had planned out. And also, I think Esther was gonna go through torture, like a little bit more torture too. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't gonna be a lot compared to Starker, but I don't really remember. I just know that was a big scene that was gonna be planned out. Another one that I started thinking about a lot too was the scene where Starker accidentally reveals himself as Esther's nightmare in front of Esther while trying to save her from something. I don't remember when I thought that out. I think I ended up thinking it up as I was starting the series, because I know I thought there was gonna be some kind of situation where he would reveal himself before actually talking to her and telling her that he was the nightmare, so it would be like a big shock to her. I just know that became a really big scene, like a really big scene that I was excited to write later on too. Another scene I also had well planned out was the hotel scene, where they're at the hotel and then they play around a lot. I feel like I should have put more in there too, because I had more ideas for that scene, but I was afraid of dragging it on too long. And currently right now, the last scene I'm planning out, I can't tell because it hasn't been written out yet, and it's been I can't tell because it's not out yet as of right now, and that would be super big spoilers. That's basically the end game of Twilight Window. So yeah. And as for stuff that was pure improv, I'm trying to think in general what was purely improv that I like completely made up. Okay, the first one that comes to mind, because I'm having trouble remembering exactly which scenes I improvised on the spot. The first one that comes to mind is right after Kai catches Kato trying to make off with the spare mischief potions, and that scene was gonna go way differently at first, and then it was like as I was writing it came out completely different, which I like better. I think I mentioned this somewhere, but yeah, originally Kai was gonna be totally merciless about it, and like, yeah, he was like gonna do his villain taunt and everything right after slicing Kato's neck. And then I think he threatened to like eat Kato or something while he was still alive, because he's a cannibal, and cannibals talk about eating other people, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, he was gonna be a lot more like, I'm so evil, ha ha ha, and now I'm gonna kill you kind of thing. And then Kato trying to escape would throw himself off the cliff. And then it ended up completely changing into what it is now, where instead it was like, why are you doing this? Why did you betray me? Or something. And, you know, this makes you a traitor, and I guess you're just like everybody else, and angst and shit. And then Kato throws himself off the cliff anyway, because he doesn't want to be killed there. And then that whole page where people consider the big conflicting emotions page, that was pretty much all improvised. And it fits better now that I know what's coming up next. Actually, the current scene that I'm on right now, 290, like the 295, 296, 297 era, that was also pretty much improv as of now. It was like a last minute scene I thought up that I thought would make this character arc better. So that's also improv. Anyways, yeah. And cute weird quirks that the cast has that I never get to explain in the main story. I'm so glad you asked, because I spend a lot of my time thinking about cute, weird quirks that I can't put in the story just yet because it wouldn't make sense. Okay, first of all, yeah, everybody hates onions. Everybody in the entirety of Twilight Window hates onions. They're an avid onion hater because onions deserve to be hated. I do not write stories that glorify onions. Onions are disgusting. Onions need to die. I hate onions. And so does everybody in Twilight Window. And some other cute weird quirks. Fable was supposed to make, like, dolls of everybody. Like, she likes making dolls of her friends. But I never got around to, like, showing that in the comic because I didn't know of any, like, instance where they would be able to settle down long enough for Fable to, like, feel like she can make dolls of everybody, I guess. I guess there was the hotel scene, but they weren't there for all that long anyway. Plus, like, after she made the dolls, what does she do with them? So, yeah. It's like, what do you do with them now? You can't really bring them with you. Okay, another quirk was Fable would be able to... She would be able to tear open her body and store stuff in her body because she doesn't have any organs. She's literally like a sentient doll person. So... there would have been a scene where she could, like, tear open her stomach or something and then, like, store, like, fabrics and sewing equipment inside of her or something. And then she'd just sew herself back up and it would heal like a regular skin or something. And that never happened because I think the instance where that would have happened, that I was planning to show that, she was going to, like, open herself up and pull out bandages for that scene where they get to the cave and they're going to, like, bandage up Starker's wound or something. And then I realized nightmares probably don't have much of a concept of what bandages are because mostly if you were a high tier you didn't need to worry about stopping the bleeding or keeping on bandages because they didn't really have bandages. You just stopped bleeding and then you healed and you were good. And yeah, not a lot of nightmares know the concept of bandages anyway, so I didn't think it would make much sense for her to be carrying that stuff around inside of her anyways. So that was that. Okay, other weird quirks. Oh yeah, Starker really likes sharks. It's like his favorite animal. If he had a persona or a fish persona, whatever, it would be a shark named Sharker. He loves sharks. He also likes pine trees. And he likes the scent of pine trees. He likes the feel of pine trees. I don't know where exactly he found out about pine trees. He probably watched it in a dream at the Nightmare Zone. But yeah, he likes pine trees a whole lot. And not very well established, but he carries that pine tree he touched on that one page, and he carries a piece of it so you can, like, touch it, and it's nice because it's piney. It's all piney. He likes pine trees and sharks, and also chocolate. But that was apparent. He has a problem about chocolate. Okay, what else? Oh yeah, another weird quirk that I thought of as I was writing Don't Forget We Live in Utopia, that I am sad that I couldn't ever think of, like, a place to put it, is Kai likes making lists for some reason. He, like, I don't know, like, he likes making lists of people and, like, for, like, different topics or something. And it's weird because I like making lists too, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, he's gonna make lists, and then the only time I think that showed was in the Utopia comic, mini comic. There's, like, in the corner of that one page, it said, like, list is a list of stupid nicknames that Cardia has in order from most to least stupidest or something. Number 1, Copepod, whatever it's pronounced. Yeah, and it was like lists kind of like that where they were kind of funny or something. And I thought that was a weird quirk, but I am kind of sad that I never got to show that. And I guess I don't know if I'd call this a weird quirk or not. His bandana is his baby blanket, basically. From, I guess after a while he got too big to use it, so he just wore it. Because he used to be tiny. And then also he never takes his hat off, like, ever. ever. Not even when he's sleeping. He still sleeps. He still sleeps with it on. And I feel like that would be the kind of thing you'd find out about in some kind of like side story or something, like a lighthearted side story. And I might still do that just because I don't, like, most of these I can't. I just didn't know where to put them in the main story. Okay, and then I can't think of any more. Yeah, I can't think of any more right now. I'm probably gonna think of some later and then be really mad that I didn't say it. So yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that for now. Everybody hates onions, sharks, weird, stupid nickname lists. Yeah. And last question. What's the coward doing? Asks Selland Alley. I don't know what this is referring to, honestly. The first thing that came to mind was Kato for some reason, just because I spent a lot of the time developing him out to be a coward, but he didn't end up being a coward, so yeah, I don't know why I still associate him with that. So, I don't know what this is referring to, I'm sorry. Anyways, that ends this question and answers thing. I am sorry that I stutter so much, or like lost what I was saying and have to like repeat myself, and if I digress too much. So hopefully I got the answers you wanted, and if people have other questions too, I could if other people have enough questions or different questions or new questions, I could probably make a part 2 later. But for now, this is the video. So yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble about my series, and have a nice day. Bye.